Hey, this is Andrew with the SpackleBucket Moto in the garage here again, and I know I put up a recent video talking about how I installed the JD tuner on my 2019 KTM 350, and I wanted to just take some time right now to explain why I opted for the JD tuner versus some of the other options. So if you're not familiar, some of the other options are the Athena GET ECU, and the other main one is the Vortex. And if you spend time on the internet, everybody is going to rave about how fantastic the Vortex is, and I have no doubt that they're wrong. But I think that there's some stuff that you really got to look at and analyze with yourself on really if it's worth going with one of the standalone engine management systems like the Vortex or the Athena, or if something like the JD tuner would work well for you. So if you don't know, the JD tuner is a piggyback system. It intercepts the signal coming from the stock ECU going to the fuel injector, does its magic, and basically adjusts and compensates the fuel for how you want it to. They do a bunch of good stuff, posting dynos and information online, and they've been known the world over for making the jetting kits for all the carbon bikes. They have special needle tapers and all that stuff. So I felt with going with them, with that history, they would likely be pretty good with going to the fuel injection setup. So that's what they've got. The Athena GET and the Vortex are both their own engine management system, meaning you pull out the stock ECU, you put their system in, and it's got a custom-made map in there. I believe the Vortex one has the map from the factory, whereas the Athena end users can change that map, but you require some special tooling to do that as well. The end user with the base package is allowed to make some modifications, but you can't completely alter the mapping. That kind of requires some of the special tuning, and I assume that they're doing this to make it so you can't blow things up, just as a safety precaution. But it is one thing to keep in mind that while you can adjust things, you don't have complete control, which is kind of a bummer considering it is a standalone ECU. Now, the other big difference between any of these systems, the JD tuner comes in around $200 to $230, depending on where you're buying it from. Vortex and GET, those are likely in the $700 to $900 range, again, depending on where you buy it from and what accessories you get. Some of the other perks with those is they do have traction control adjustments, so you can have some different maps that utilizes assumed RPM rise rates. So if it sees that the wheel spins up too quickly in a given gear, it'll want to either pull fuel or timing to kind of bring the traction back and keep you moving forward. So those are a couple of big things that you get with it. For me personally, my prior bike was a 2013 350EXC, and on that bike I had the Euro XCFW mapping, and that to me was fantastic. And I felt if I could get close to replicating that, I would be thrilled with it. And so I didn't really feel that the additional cost of these other ECUs warranted really shelling out the extra cash. Yeah, for me, I've always wanted traction control on a dirt bike. For some reason, I like the tech side of that. I had a BMW 800 GS, which had traction control based on wheel speed sensors. And that was something that was really cool, where you could get that in a specific drift coming through a turn, and it would just hold it, and you'd feel the traction control kind of pulsing things, and you could hold a nice drift coming out of a turn. But for something like the 350, that to me wasn't so critical. And really even on the 800, that was just kind of one of those things where when I was screwing around in the dirt, it was just kind of neat to play with. But if you botched the turn, you were still screwed up. So it wasn't like going to completely save you from doing something insane. It would just be there to kind of help and assist. And so that brings it back to the JD tuner again for me. They made it set up so if you're familiar with tuning a carb, it's very similar to that. You know, if you have a old carb 4-stroke with the accelerator pump, they base their tuning on that. So you've got a setting for that. You can go through high, low, medium, cruising settings, all of that. And it's all pretty easy to adjust. So why don't you come in here, I'll show you on this side cover here how we get to that, which is pretty straightforward. Since I mounted my adjustment or the box inside of my air box, you just end up with their tuner right in the side here. And when you go turn it on, you just have all your settings for high, mid, low, and idle adjustments, as well as the accelerator pump as noted before. And you just click through on each of the settings and you just dial into what they say. If you feel you're lacking in an area, if it's a little like rich, a little lean, you can just go tweak that, adjust your settings, take some notes, and basically let it go. It's a very straightforward. I mean, I will say that I do like the idea of the Athena where you can adjust it from your phone, but that's still one of those things where then you're having to rely on having your phone at all times if you want to make any tweaks, which if you're like me at all, when you're on the trails, you really don't want to be reaching into your pocket, screwing with a phone. I mean, I've dropped enough phones in the mud to not want to have to deal with that again. So that's some of the stuff to look at when you're considering any of these options. Don't necessarily believe all the hype that you may read about online. Yes, some of the pricier options are fantastic, but that doesn't mean that some of the lower cost options aren't just as good. So be realistic about what you're using the bike for. Be realistic about your skills and abilities and what you're looking to get out of the bike. And just always remember that there's really only 2 add-ons that you're gonna do, or 2 things that you can really do with the bike that are gonna make you that much faster. And that's spending more time in the seat and holding the throttle open longer and the brakes less. So I'm Andrew from SpackleBucket Moto. Catch you later.